So we've actually technically run out of time, but I'm just going to borrow 10 minutes from somewhere else for questions. Probably the posters, sorry. Can I take, stick your hands up if you have questions. We've got some at the front here and some at the back.
So my question is, do you think that there is enough consequences for politicians or other kind of people in positions of power spreading fake news? Because it seems like even when the organizations are kind of calling out, like, hey, this was a lie, it doesn't necessarily stop, whether it's Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, lying. And have any of you investigated, like, more serious sort of interventions, like looking at legal changes or something else that would raise the stakes, raise the consequences? And on the flip side of that, what's the carrot? You know, do we reward people for telling the truth?
Yeah. Really good question. Who wants to take it?
I think there is no disincentive to lying. I think the United States is a very good example. The way I think people like us work is to call out influencers. I mean, we attack a lot of influencers, particularly who are on social media, and we find that has had an impact. Over the last 2 years, we can see the people that we've been calling out quite aggressively, particularly on Twitter and Facebook, reduce the number of times they disseminate fake news or disseminate something without checking it. But is there any other form of system that can perhaps incentivize them? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I would want a system that would punish politicians for not saying the truth in any other way than flagging what they're saying as false and showing people that that is false. Just because that would give an enormous power to whoever gets to decide what's true and what's not. And being a fact checker and working as a fact checker and kind of publishing what's true and what's not true, I do not want that power. And I probably don't want anyone else having it.
And then I think that takes you on to the conclusion that we live in a world of information fog, where everyone has more and more information than ever, but it's harder and harder to know what to trust. And in that world, we have to do better at creating brighter beacons that can cut through that fog. Because we know that one of the best tactics for vote suppression is simply to confuse people into not taking part in democracy, and it's commonly used. So we need to think very carefully about the supply of good information as well as how we tackle bad information.
Cool. Next question.
Yes, it's Walid Al-Sakaf. First, I applaud your efforts all, and it's really inspiring. I come from the Middle East, like Farhat, and it's a very tough region. And one of the main principles of the IFCN is transparency. And I was in Tunis and gave training to the Libyan fact-checkers who would like to establish a similar initiative, but they are fearful of having to let go of their privacy. How would you compromise between being transparent and at the same time protecting lives?
For information, Peter Cunliffe-Jones is currently doing a review of the International Fact-Checking Network's Code of Practice. If he stands up just now, this is the man responsible for figuring out a good answer to that question. Do see him afterwards.
Great. Next question. I think we had one right at the back. And then maybe one at the front here.
Hello, just to echo that comment, thank you for all the work you do, it's important. What, from your experience, has been the most effective way of getting the fact-checked or the debunked information to the consumers and to the audience? What experience have you had of reaching those people?
Go for it.
So we are also, I can speak for us in Boom, we are also a third-party fact-checking partner with Facebook. So the impact that we have is via Facebook. Obviously, the posts that are flagged as false by Facebook users show up on a dashboard, and if we put the strike on them, then Facebook suppresses the distribution. So that's one kind. We are also actually in India working with another social platform which is quite large. It's large, and it just saw a pretty big investment from Twitter. And we are also talking to a third platform. So we feel that one way of having impact is via platforms because their reach is in hundreds of millions. We are also on social media, and in some cases, and particularly involving well-known politicians, we can see that the stuff that we are putting out either is debunked or raising questions goes viral. So, but in contrast to the hundreds of millions, we are playing in the maybe hundreds of thousands or occasionally millions.
I would say that there's, at least we haven't found like a magical formula to find everyone. We would like to. And for now, we're trying with different ways, different formats, different ways of presenting information. One of the things that has worked very well for us in Argentina has been alliances with other media outlets. So that when people listen to the radio, they're not necessarily going into our website. They're just listening to the radio in the morning and they get our fact checks because we have a column there. And for the elections, we have launched, we're running a project with more than 100 media outlets that publish the debunks of viral misinformation. And that has helped a lot to at least stop or that the spread of misinformation is not as quick and it's not as mainstream as it could have been, we think, if we hadn't had these alliances.
I'd probably add, at AfricaCheck, we think one other way would be to build on news literacy programs, especially in schools and among the youth. In that way, it gives them at least a fighting chance. Sometimes it does feel like whack-a-mole in terms of just the tide of misinformation. But if you're targeting groups like the youth, they've got really strong networks, ways of communicating with the society, and so we think that's probably an approach we should also focus on in terms of just helping people spot misinformation before it takes off.
I think we have to stop there. I'm sorry, I've already borrowed 10 minutes. So can we please give a round of applause for our fantastic fact checkers?